How'd you like to get Ben Burns, Jazz Ray, and Brian Power for the next 3 days for the price of one? For 2 decades, Covers.com ranked among the biggest pick selling websites on the internet. Last July, they stopped selling picks, and at that time, their three most popular handicappers were Ben Burns, Brian Power, and Jazz Ray. With WagerTalk being the industry leader, it was only natural for those three esteemed handicappers to go exclusive with us. They all bring extremely impressive resumes to the table. While they're here because of their long term excellence, all three have turned plenty of heads since their arrival. Jazz ranked among the best handicappers on the entire site in 2022. Brian is our number one handicapper in March, and Ben quickly established himself as this season's number one big game college hoops handicapper. For the first time ever, you can get all the picks from Ben, Brian, and Jazz for the price of only one of them. This amazing offer won't last, as you can get 3 days of picks regularly priced at $59 each, which is $177 for all three, including any 5% best bets normally priced at $35 for only $655 per handicapper. That's right, $59 for all three cappers for all 3 days. Take advantage today.
Wager Talk Today, Wednesday, March the 22nd, here on Wager Talk TV. And we are live every Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and of course, archived 24/7 for your viewing pleasure here on Wager Talk TV. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez. He will be back tomorrow on Thursday, so don't you worry, Teddy Covers. He'll be back. In the meantime, we've got a loaded show today on Wednesday. Who do we have on?
We sure do. We're going to start out with one of the hottest cappers on the planet, Adam Trigger, riding a 13-0 college hoops run, and I'm not surprised. Trigger has been on the show all year, talking about the games that he's been to and watching. He's put the time in college hoops, and he's making money right now. He's going to break down a pair of games for the Sweet 16. UConn against Arkansas, Houston against Miami. In my What Bettors Learn segment, I'll talk a little bit more about NBA in-game betting thoughts. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. We'll break down some more concepts today when it comes to NBA in-game betting. Tony Finn is the middleman on today's show. He's going to talk Knicks Heat in NBA action and Vanderbilt UAB in college hoops tonight. NIT quarterfinals. The winner of that game goes to Las Vegas to play in the NIT Final Four. My big game breakdown is in the association. We'll talk the Jazz and the Trailblazers. And Arthur DiCesare is going to close out the show. Risk management supervisor over the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. We'll get Art's thoughts from the other side of the counter before this show is through. So loaded Wednesday edition. Lots to talk about. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's bring on Adam Trigger, and we'll talk some college hoops. And just a little quick promotion. I did do a Fade the Public video for the Thursday game, so that's on Wager Talk TV as well right now. So hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts. And, of course, the college basketball tip-off show will be on at 2 o'clock Eastern today. And, Adam, not only have you gone to a lot of games this year, but one thing I love is that you always pick up a souvenir, and you're wearing one now, and we're actually going to talk about that game. You're either going to fade the team or be on the team that you're wearing. UConn, Arkansas, which way are you looking?
Steve, I'm going to be on UConn. I bet them back on February 15th. We talked about it on the Hustle, some of the other Wager Talk shows, at 30-1 to win this thing. It was shortly after I went down and saw them play Marquette in a game that was arguably one of their most impressive performances of the season, at least to date back then. But they're one of the I would say 3 or 4 truly elite teams left in this tournament, and one that I think sort of profiles as a team that could win this tournament if you look at teams that have won this tournament consistently in the past. As far as this game is concerned, I really like the matchup here for UConn. And actually, it's more that I don't like the matchup for Arkansas. UConn has 2 elite bigs, Sonogo, Donovan Clingan. They're elite. They play elite defense, especially on the interior. And I think here, guys, that they can turn Arkansas into a shooting team, specifically from distance, where Arkansas has been horrific this season. 324th nationally in three-point shooting. They only hit threes at about a 31% clip, and that's just not going to get it done. What did get it done for Arkansas against Kansas was they owned the offensive glass, and their ability to rebound and sort of make athletic plays was the reason they were able to come back in that game with some timely shooting as well, which is not something you always get from Arkansas. But they're just not going to win the rebounding battle against this UConn team. UConn's been a top 10 rebounding team all season. and they'll clean up the defensive glass where I don't think those second chance points are going to be there for Arkansas. UConn, I still think this team is better than what they look on paper. I think their shooters are better than what they've shot this season. They had some great shot making in the second half against St. Mary's. They've been dominant, especially Sonogo, who's he's no-showed at times, Teddy, but not in this tournament so far. 24 points, 28 points, two dominant performances over Iona and St. Mary's. I think UConn continues to roll here, and I think they cover against Arkansas.
So my question here comes about the point spread itself. Because when we look at the Ken Pom numbers, where basically college basketball point spreads are based on the Ken Pom the Ken Pom advanced metrics are a pretty good indicator of where the point spreads are going to be. And Ken Pom has Houston as the best team in the country, Alabama 2, UCLA 3, and 4 seed UConn as the 4th best team in the country. Therefore, what we're seeing game in, game out is point spreads that look a little bit high on the UConn side. Does that concern you here? Do you think UConn is legitimately the 4th best team in the country, like they're priced in Ken Palms and like they're being priced in the betting markets right now? Because that's my biggest concern with the Huskies side here is where they're being priced in a point spread range. It feels to me a little bit too high.
Teddy, I think that's an amazing point. It's actually why I haven't bet on UConn yet in this tournament. And it's probably why I haven't made them a client play yet here, why I still have it as more of just a strong opinion. I think you nailed it. The numbers have been high, but to answer your question, I do think UConn is one of the 4 best teams in the country. If you want to go back to the first game of the tournament that they played against Iona, I thought that number might be a little high. UConn had no problem. I didn't love the matchup for UConn against St. Mary's in terms of, St. Mary's was going to be very deliberate, slow them down potentially. And actually, I was at that game that was in Albany, New York on Sunday. St. Mary's had them in the first half, and UConn just came out and defended their tails off in the second half, Teddy. St. Mary's got nothing easy, and UConn was able to have some really solid shot making to allow them to pull away. Here, I just think the matchup is so good for UConn that they're going to win this game. And if they win, I think it's more than likely they cover 3.5 or 4, whatever you're seeing out there right now. But that is the point spread is the great equalizer. We always talk about it. And it could be a game that sort of comes into a, couple possessions at the end. But I do think UConn ends up on the right side of the number.
Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. He's wearing the UConn Husky jacket, but the game will be right down the road from Teddy Covers at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, 7:15 Eastern on CBS Thursday. And once again, I did a Thursday video. One thing I mentioned to that, Adam, is that there's only 3 teams in the country, going back to those Ken Pom rankings, that is top 15, both offense and defensive efficiency, and UConn is one of them. Texas and Houston are the other 2. Even Alabama, the number 1 overall seed, is only 18th on offensive efficiency. So UConn a really good team. They've been kind of underrated. Top 25 videos I did about a month ago, they're outside the top 20 at one point. So yeah, a strong 4 seed there in UConn. All right, let's look towards Friday. I will have a video for Friday's games as well, Adam, but I haven't done it yet, so I'm getting interested in your take on one of these in particular. That's the Houston Cougars and the Miami Golden Hurricane. No, not the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, the Miami Hurricane. But this game is also at 7:15 Eastern on CBS, this time in Kansas City, Missouri. And Houston, as Teddy said, number 1 in Ken Palms. I have them as the best team in the country. I believe you do as well. But is this spread too big against a scrappy Miami team?
Steve, I agree with you. I have Houston as the top team in the country. I also agree with you, Ken Pom, and those metrics that Houston, UConn, and Texas are the 3 elite teams right now in college basketball. I have them a cut above Alabama. And I don't think this number, I think this number is actually a little bit short. I think we get Houston winning going away here, and it's a 4% play for me. So hopefully the streak is still going on Friday, and we can all ride this one together. I love Houston in this spot. Guys, it reminds me of Kansas-Miami last year, where Miami is a little bit of a trendy dog. They run into finally a truly elite team. I don't know if Houston will win this game by 26, but I do think they'll win it by double digits. And one of the biggest reasons I really like Houston in this spot is they tend to win and cover when they're the better team at both ends of the floor. I really think that that's what we're getting with Houston here. We know Houston is elite defensively. Their post defense is phenomenal. Miami doesn't typically play through the post, at least not particularly well. So it's really Norchad O'Meara or nothing in the post. I think you're going to get a lot of jump shooting from Miami, which they're going to be fine with because they have very good guards that shoot the ball well. So Miami, if they're gonna have to shoot jumpers, they're gonna do it. But Houston is as good of a defensive team as you're gonna find in the country. Fourth in adjusted defensive efficiency, which is another Ken Pom metric. But I also love the way Houston contest shots. I don't think Miami's going to get anything easy here in terms of on the offensive end. But on the defensive end, I think Houston might score with relative consistency here. Miami might be one of the 16 teams left. You might even be able to call them one of the 16 best teams in college basketball right now. But I'd argue that they're arguably the worst team in the Sweet 16 right now, at least worst or second to worst. And I know you've got teams like Princeton and Florida Atlantic still in there, but Miami doesn't defend like the rest of the teams that are still in the tournament. They're outside the top 100 in adjusted defensive efficiency. They haven't been particularly strong on defense all year. And I think if Houston's able to score and they're able to score, without a huge issue, I think that's where we see Houston blow this one open. So it really, guys, it reminds me a lot of Miami, Kansas last year, the way the Hurricanes are coming in, the publicly backed dog. I know that doesn't always work out, but I think it works out here. I'm laying the points with Houston. I think they win this one going away.
So you said it a few moments ago. You said the point spread is a great equalizer. Miami as an underdog this year. They've been an underdog 8 times. They've covered 7 of those 8 games. Miami at +7 or higher. The last time they lost a game by more than 7 points was before Thanksgiving. Do either of those concern you? All they've done is stick around and cover as a dog and cover as a dog and hang tough and cover as a dog and stick around all year long. It's not like we can look at Miami and go, oh, that's a surprise. That's what they do. That's in their DNA. Does that concern you here?
Teddy, the reason it doesn't is because I really feel like they're finally running into one of the elite team. And I just don't think they saw that kind of elite competition in the ACC this year. The ACC was as bad as I can remember. Being up here in ACC country in Syracuse, I watch a lot of ACC basketball. Even the teams that we sort of rely on being really good in the ACC, the Virginias, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, UNC not even in the tournament, Duke completely dismantled by Tennessee, Virginia losing to Furman. Like they Miami was underdogs to a lot of those teams during the regular season. So, I just think that this is a totally different sort of caliber of opponent, and it's an opponent that they're not going to have a great game plan for because they don't typically see a team like Houston. And I just think this Houston team, my power rating would be much higher on them than any team Miami has played probably since the time you're referencing. So I actually have this number a little short. I personally would make it closer to 8. So 6.5, we're out there. They're probably gone. I would lay the touchdown. I'll be shocked if Houston doesn't win this thing by double digits.
Yeah, and Adam, the one knock on Houston obviously is a little bit of a weaker conference overall, but then again, the ACC really down this year, and Miami's the only lone survivor right now in the Sweet 16 from the ACC, so very well might be gone here after this round. That's Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. Adam, what you got going on at WagerTalk?
Yeah, so we're going for 14 in a row tonight. 5% play. That goes in one of the Wednesday night games. I've posted another play, or I'll have it posted. It's already out to all access subscribers. Actually, my annual all access coupon is still good. That's for 1 year, Trig 365. And I already gave you Houston -7. That's a 4% play that's already gone out to clients that goes on Friday. But I'll have a bunch for this weekend. So go check out my page over at WagerTalk.
Yeah, not only is it 13 wins in a row, but more impressive to me, Adam, 34-9 run overall in college basketball the last 43. That's what makes you even more money than just 13 straight winners is 34-9. And once again, Adam's got a huge 5% max best bet for college basketball. It's not on Wednesday, wagertalk.com. Thanks, Adam. We'll talk to you again soon. And once again, Adam can be seen quite often on the college basketball show as well. That's at 2 o'clock Eastern today. That'll actually be myself. And Rob Vina will be on as well on that show. So check it out along with Brian Power. Teddy, the NBA show at 4:15 Eastern today's got you, Jade Money, and Ski Profit. And before we get to Tony Finn, who I did some shows with yesterday, let's talk a little NBA, Teddy. It's a huge card tonight, 10 games on Wednesday. It's a big NBA card before we get into the Sweet 16 starting tomorrow. What did you learn last night in the NBA?
Sure. I wanted to talk a little bit more about in-game betting. We talked about what in-game betting for the NBA and what bettors learned yesterday. And I wanted to pick up a few thoughts from what I talked about yesterday. A couple of nuances, perhaps, that were not well discussed. Number one, when I'm betting in-game in the NBA, I'm betting during commercials, not during live play. Be patient. You'll get your timeout soon enough. There's a huge difference between live feeds. Some people are going to go to commercial before other people are going to go to commercial. But when you're betting in-game, some people seen the bucket before you've seen the bucket, perhaps. That's a big issue. Instead, avoid it. Just bet during the commercial breaks when one team or the other team calls timeout. And that also helps you in terms of not making a zillion bets on the same game. You're taking a breath. You're making a bet during the commercial break. That's a big nuance of betting NBA in-game. Another thing I want to talk about is betting at multiple books. Because one of the things we talked about yesterday is betting both sides of the game, getting a plus price on this side, a plus price on that side. You're done. You don't want to be betting both sides of the same game at the same book. It's a surefire way to get limited. Bet at multiple books. Try hard not to be betting both sides of the same game at the same book, night in, night out. That's another reason why we talk about having multiple accounts on WagerTalk Today as often as we can. And the third point I wanted to make, and look, teams blow leads every single night. Right? Could have had the Nets plus 20 in game last night. They lost by 6 to Cleveland. You could have the Magic as a plus price on money line in the fourth quarter. They won game one. They won by double digits against the Grizzlies. On and on and on. If you're paying attention to the NBA when it comes to in-game betting, I honestly don't think there's a better sport to do it in. Take advantage. It's not something we can give client plays for. It's not something we can do on a night in, night out basis to talk about here on Wager Talk Today. We're talking much more about first half or full game wagers than we are about in-game wagers. It's not the right show for that, but it is certainly something that has the potential to be a nice moneymaker for you and a significant something you should be paying attention to on a night in, night out basis. So there's a little bit more about what we learned about NBA in-game betting. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was on the other side of one of those blown leads. I'm doing Morency's show. I'm pre-taping Morency's show last night. I glanced at my Clippers play, and it's 18-4 is the first score I see. 18-4 mid-first quarter. And then they're actually not even winning at the end of the first quarter. I mean, that's pretty hard to do, and they found a way to do it. So you're right about the runs in the NBA. And by the way, I mean, just in-game betting in general, you always want to try to take adjusted line value, in my opinion. I mean, you don't want to be laying when a team has a big lead. Like you said, you want to take that adjusted line value with the bigger prices. And also the commercial breaks, NCAA tournament for me, at least with Cox Cable here on the East Coast, I'm sometimes 2 to 3 possessions behind the live betting score and live betting odds. So it's impossible, basically, to try to play it that way, in my opinion.
Well, that's why you got to do it in the commercial breaks. Yeah, I mean, that's the time to do it. Otherwise, you're betting with one hand tied behind your back, or the moral equivalent thereof.
Unless you're sitting in the arena, right? And then maybe you're ahead of the networks even. So that's the one advantage there as well. All right, let's bring on Tony Finn. Tijuana, Tony. Tony, let's talk some NBA while we've got you. And then we're going to get into an NIT game as well. But Teddy covers former New York Knicks against Joe Ranieri's Miami Heat. What you doing in this one, Tony?
Well, when I saw this line, or when I saw the opening, the overnight, and saw the line and the spread and the total, it didn't surprise me what I saw. In fact, it kind of titillated me a little bit. Is that if you look at this line, the total now, I think it's moved up to about 227.5 or 228 in this Knicks and Miami game. If you go back to their first meeting this year, this is the third meeting between the two. If you go back to their first meeting this year, you'll see a line that closed around 215, 215.5. The second time they met, and the first meeting, by the way, guys, went under. 210 was the final, I think, the final score, coming under the 215.5. The second time they met, these two teams shot incredible. They both shot about 1.2 points per possession, and just crushed the total. It flew over the total. They've made a big adjustment again from that game and raised about 5 points now from what it was the second time around, 221, maybe even 6 points now with the bump and the money that's come across the counter on this over. I'm one of those that when I see this, I think you two would probably agree that I'm willing to step in front of that adjustment. I think it's too much. I think these are two of the slowest pace teams in the NBA, 27th and 28th ranked pace teams. And I don't think they can reproduce or rinse and repeat what they did in the second game. I went under in this Knicks Miami game. I think right now I'm showing a 227.5 or 228, depending on your book.
So I have no argument whatsoever talking about Miami Heat games under the total. But the Knicks have legitimately, if you look at the season-long stats, I don't think they're telling the true story for the New York Knickerbockers. They've been playing at a much faster pace in the season-long stats. This is what we look for as handicappers, is season-long stats that are flat out lying. And the Knicks pace stats from what they were doing in October and November to what they're doing now, it's a lot. Their season-long stats are not telling the truth of the team that's on the court these days. Does that concern you at all for this one, being that the Knicks season-long stats aren't telling the truth about their current form?
It would, Teddy, and it's a great point. And it would concern me if there were two variables that were different. And if the two variables that were different were that if the Knicks were playing at home and if Mitch wasn't in the middle, if he was not, if he's not healthy, Miss Robinson, then they don't have a rim protector. That's just it. They play at a faster pace. With him in there, play a little slower, and they do a pretty good job against mid-range twos and three and guarding the three line. They're not terrific. They're not the same Tom T unit they were a year ago, mostly because they changed the lineup. They brought in the Houston grad that used to be the Kansas player that transferred there, and he's been terrific from the three-point line. He's added about 2 points to their offensive efficiency. But that's a good point, Teddy. It does concern me a little bit. However, I think in Miami they will do the best they can to control this pace, and they certainly don't want to run. They haven't run all year.
And that line opened 220. It's all the way up to 224.5. So it's Tony Finn saying take that adjusted value now with the under between the Knicks and Heat tonight on Wednesday. That game goes at 7:40 Eastern tonight. There are 3 college basketball games tonight. Of course, the NCAA Sweet 16 tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. A lot of hoopla about that. By the way, I've got a free contest. If you pick all the tournament games, you went up to a free year of service. So check that out on my page for the Sweet 16. That starts tomorrow and Thursday. The contest is up now. But, Tony, there are 3 games tonight. We're going to talk about all 3 on the college basketball show at 2 Eastern. I'll be on there with Rob and Brian Power, breaking down the CBI championship and then the 2 quarterfinals in the NIT. So I want to get your thoughts on one of them tonight. Let's go with the early game at 7 Eastern, UAB at Vanderbilt in the NIT.
Listen, Vanderbilt they made a solid jump in execution, a solid jump in efficiency and production. And I like what they did. And many will say, hey, listen, Vandy's finished 6th in a very difficult conference. I think that's right. But the thing is that if you look at the metrics and you believe in metrics in college and you trust some of the portals out there, you'll find that UAB's better. They're better offensively. They're better defensively, especially defensively. And many will argue with me on the offensive part, but this is a UAB team that's 49th in KenPom ratings, if you like KenPom, and they rank 31st in adjusted tempo. This is a team that can actually keep pace with Vandy and actually and do a better job executing a defensive scheme. I like them on the road. They weren't horrible this year, away from home, playing the role of the visitor. And while Vandy has been exceptional in many, many instances, what happened against them in Michigan, where they got very fortunate to beat Michigan, I think tonight that you're going to find that UAB actually murders the Commodores on the offensive glass. This is where where their Achilles is, rebounding, and particularly the offensive side. So second chance points to UAB essentially a pick 'em on the road. I like the Blazers tonight in a pick in a game I think they can win by double digits if they're really good.
So I guess I got a couple of questions for you, but the big one is this. The SEC's done well in the postseason. All right. Yeah. When you look at the big dance, no conference has more Sweet 16 teams than the SEC. This was an up year in this conference. We're getting an SEC team that came on like a freight train down the stretch. Another team whose season-long stats are not going to tell you their the true story, because they were a much better team their last, 15 games or so than they were at any point in their first 15. So we have a conference that's been elite and a team whose season-long powering number is lying. We're getting them to pick them at home. Doesn't any of that concern you?
Well, I mean, here's the deal. I know when we get into tournament time, Teddy, those are great questions. And when we get, it brings up the point. When we get in tournament time, I don't. Some of the metrics have to be. You have to use your eye test. You have, if you've watched these teams at all, and you believe that Conference USA is a capable conference and they're competitive night in and night out at a high level. I mean, the Blazers, they're not only a good rebounding team and they crash the boards, they're nimble. They do a great job of getting them to the places where they know the ball is going to be. If you like Conference USA, they're going to rank 10th in all college in Division I. The Commodores, listen, you're right. This is offensive strength, this team. And in this conference, the SEC, it was pretty physical defensively as well. And I think a good conference, even people, I think they've downgraded some of the defense, Auburn, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the Commodores go, I think against them, and if I'm picking a team that I think can beat them or at least compete with them at a level or higher, it would be a team that can score with them. And I know this UAB team can do that, but everything's a concern. I expect the unexpected in postseason play. That's how we have upsets. Teams do some things that they haven't done all season. Good coaches make adjustments. I trust UAB. I trust staff.
And of course, the expected is what exactly is priced into the line, as you guys are talking about. So that's actually not a bad way to look at handicapping in general, especially in the postseason when we have 5 months of data under our belts. Tony Finn, we mentioned Trigger had won 13 straight college hoops. Tony had a pretty darn good night in basketball as well. 6-0 sweep last night on Tuesday. Tony Finn, what you got going and what you got planned for Wednesday?
I have four. I took 4 positions in the NBA. I have 3 game positions, 1 prop, 1 player, top player prop. And I have one. I've already given away. I have UAB tonight as my lone postseason play. I have UAB in a pick against Vandy at a 3% play, a solid best bet play. And of course, I have 2. I really like a couple of Sweet 16s, and I've already positioned them both as 5% plays. 1 on Thursday, 1 on Friday. You can get both for the price of 1 only at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, red hot cappers on today. Adam Trigger, 13 straight college wins. Tony Finn, 6-0 sweep last night. And then Teddy covers on a mere 16-4, 80% NBA run. Teddy won his
That's
big
it.
5%er on Monday, came right back last night and won again in the NBA. And Teddy, I believe you're going to give us a 3% NBA play in your big game breakdown here in just a moment. 30 seconds commercial break and a free NBA best bet from Teddy Covers.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's go to the association for Wednesday night. This is a 3% client play for me, one of 3 plays available right now at WagerTalk or sportsmemo.com for Wednesday evening. The Blazers and the Jazz. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, I'm seeing Utah minus 4.5 pretty much across the board, total 234.5. And this is real simple. It's a one-way handicap, all right? The Portland Trailblazers were expected to make a playoff push after the All-Star break. Instead, they've gone 3-11 straight up, 4-10 against the spread. All 3 of those wins came against lottery-bound teams, 2 of them against real bottom feeders. They beat Detroit, Houston, and they did one at Orlando. Can't say I love the Chauncey Billups quote, They lost to Boston last Friday. Quote, we played a team that's, let's face it, is better than us. You got to play pretty much an outstanding game to have a shot. That's not what I want for my head coach. Surely worth noting that 10 of Portland's last 11 losses have come by double-digit margins. When they're getting beat, they're not coming back. And they also won't have two of their three leading scorers tonight. Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons both have been ruled out. Utah, look, it's not always easy to lay points with the Jazz. They're not 100%. They're not even 50% right now. They won a game the other night for me, -3 starters. Don't know if Markkanen is going to play tonight. I don't care. They're 4-1 straight up in their last 5 ball games. They're talking about the playoff push that Portland's not making. This is a bet on versus a bet against with a reasonable point spread range. Give me the Utah Jazz over the Portland Trailblazers. -4.5 for this bettor is a very reasonable number. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Teddy covers. Once again, Teddy's on his 16-4, 80% NBA run. He just gave you a 3% play for free here on Wager Talk today. And once again, Teddy has several basketball best bets, including an NIT one for Wednesday night. I've got some best bets tonight as well in hoops. I'll be back at 2 o'clock Eastern on the college basketball show. And then Teddy will be back at 4 o'clock, 4:15 Eastern on the NBA show today on Wednesday. So a lot of basketball talk. Also, don't forget, my free Sweet 16 contest is available right now on my page. Enter for free. You can win up to a full year, $2,000 value of my best bets. Go to my page, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Let's bring on from Las Vegas, Nevada, from the Westgate Superbook, Arthur DiCesare. And Arthur is, of course, the risk supervisor at the Westgate, and nobody better to talk to the day before the Sweet 16 than someone who's on the inside. Art, I'll start off with the Sweet 16. What have you guys been seeing? Where's the money been coming? Your thoughts on Thursday and Friday, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to be here, gentlemen. Obviously we have a handful of games. We got a lot of good games and a couple of good games here in town. Touch on a couple. Michigan State, Kansas State. We opened State, and that's Michigan State, -1. It's now 2. So Michigan State money's come in, and then over money has come in on that game as well, 135.5 to 137.5. One of the games that's here, UCLA and Gonzaga. We've seen great two-way action. Early money was on UCLA -1. When it got to 2, Gonzaga money came in. We've now settled in the middle at 1.5. So really good two-way on that game. Couple of sharp plays on some games. Xavier money came in at 4.5. It's only ticked down 0.5 point. So it's now Texas -4. And then San Diego State, Bama. We were 6.5 as an opener. When we hit 8, the sharp money came in on San Diego State. It's now 7.5. So the two teams that took the good sharp money early, Xavier and San Diego State.
Arthur DiCesare giving us the lowdown. Excellent breakdown of where the money has come for the Sweet 16. He's telling us who the pros like and who's the Joes like in that one. Anything stand out to you as a public play in Sweet 16 action? I know sometimes people like following the wise guys, but they love fading the public even more.
Yeah, it's probably the game that Adam talked about. I know he talked about a couple, but that UConn game, it feels like that's going to be the Pro Joe split. Not that I've seen really good sharp action on Arkansas yet, but all the bets we've taken, it's been slow on that game, have been public bets that come in on UConn. So, and it's funny, we even dropped the line 0.5 point, but it's just because we were following the market on that. We had it for 3.5. We might even bounce back up to 4. But, I think at some point we'll see some sharp money in Arkansas. That's a gut feeling. I don't know if it will happen, but I think UConn's going to be very public. And I think they'll be very public on the money line as well. I think they'll be in all the money line parlays this week. They'll kind of lead the money line parlays.
At ArtDice21 on Twitter. He has an excellent follow. Arthur DiCesare. Art, we're going to talk futures in just a minute for the big dance, but I want to take a quick look back at last weekend. 2 questions. First, the final shot of the game for Gonzaga and TCU. How much of a swing was that just at the Westgate? Was that a $100,000 swing, a $500,000 swing, $1 million swing, a $10,000 swing? Like what kind of range when you talk about the parlay liability and all the different liabilities you had? How big was that shot?
Yeah, it wasn't in the $500,000 or $1 million swing, but I remember I kind of was like looking somewhere else because I just wasn't paying attention that the game was obviously ending and it was done, and then the shot hit and we're in the back room and everyone goes, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" And then we look and it was like a $10,000 to $20,000 swing, adding in second half, in game, all the type of things that we kind of put into this. So yeah, I mean, it swung some money for us. There's no doubt.
Was it the best game of the weekend? Whoa, what was the best game for the house and the worst game for the house last weekend, if anything stands out?
Oh, well, definitely the best was the Duke game. I mean, every Duke, Tennessee. I mean, it just felt like everybody had Duke money. Duke was a really good, and I also add that Duke was like our biggest liability as far as the East region goes, and we had some liability on them winning it all. So knocking Duke out in the second round was really great for us.
Yeah, it's interesting, Teddy, because I was going to ask him the liability going forward of the futures, but I do want to have one more follow up about last weekend. First of all, Fairleigh Dickinson, they like to be FDU, but we got to call them Fairleigh Dickinson because people still don't know who FDU is otherwise. But they looked very public to me on Sunday, at least some of the metrics I looked at. I did my Fade the Public video for Thursday, which is up now on WagerTalk TV, but I'm doing one for Friday as well, Art. So I want to see if you see any public dogs there. From my initial look, it looks like Princeton might be getting a little bit of public love. It just seems like the public loves to jump on these, Cinderella stories, at least in the short term. What were your thoughts on Fairleigh Dickinson against FAU Florida Atlantic? I mean, was that the public side from what you saw Sunday?
Yeah, Steve, I could get with you on that. I think a lot of people looked at it, and I understand it's a 16 seed and it's only the second time it's happened, but I think a lot of people just blindly saw, wait, this team's going to get 15 and a half or 16 points. We're just going to take, Fairleigh Dickinson. Because also not a lot of people know much about FAU. I mean,
Right.
obviously, if you're there from November and college basketball, the team's what, 33-3 or 34-3, whatever the record is. And Fairleigh Dickinson's the last thing people just saw beating Purdue and the big man. So I think people just looked at it like, well, that's way too many points. So I think that was a feel on people taking FDU.
Yeah, and Florida Atlantic, like you said, not a household name. I thought there was tremendous sharp square divide from what I was looking at. That line opened 12 and a half, closed up to size 15 and a half, even I think touched 16 at some spots. So be interesting to see what happens in this Princeton, Missouri game tomorrow on Friday. Let me ask you the big picture. You mentioned Duke getting out of the way was good for you guys. Do you have much liability? Where are the future bets right now? Any liability on any of these 16 teams remaining?
The one that really stands out is one that I mentioned kind of pre-tournament when coming into like the WCC and the NCAA tournament, you could have got as high as 20-1, and they were one of the preseason top teams. Is Gonzaga? Gonzaga was a team that some money really came in early in the season, which was no surprise. But then when they kind of bottomed out with their number, and we hit as high as 20-1, we saw some Gonzaga money come in. Now we're Gonzaga 12-1, and obviously, their path would have to be to get to a Final Four, probably beat UCLA and probably beat UConn. So that's no easy task. But, the Gonzaga money has been pretty good. The other top teams like the Alabamas and the Houstons and those type, we're okay on those type of teams. This is not going to be really anything that hurts us there. Creighton is a little bit of a concern because there has been some love still for Creighton. And, a couple of weeks ago, you could have gotten Creighton 40-1, 30-1, and they're now 12-1. So Creighton's a little bit of concern, but out of the remaining 16, Gonzaga is the biggest one.
So you talked a little bit about how the fairly ridiculous Florida Atlantic game was the sharp square divide game. And fairly ridiculous was the public side, and FAU was the sharp side, and the sharps went nuts on FAU, and they all lost their ass on that game, and the public did just fine. Backing. Is that a normal scenario? Do you see the public beat the wise guys this time of year, or is that really the exception rather than the rule? If the pros and Joes are on opposite sides, is that a 55-45 or is that like a 75-25?
That's a great question, Teddy. I think when it comes to this tournament, you could throw it all out the window. You just never know. Every game is different. Every side is different. Over the long haul, you obviously want to be with the sharps. You want to be with the guys who are the respected bettors, where the good money is. Normally, you want to fade the public. All the public was all over Duke, and that didn't work out against Tennessee. So I think normally you want to stick with that. But this is such a condensed, 2, 3, 4 week thing where, yeah, the public can get lucky sometimes. It's not even luck. It's just, it's a 1 game sample where maybe they really do kill it or they have a really good weekend. But, I know for us, when this tournament comes along, there's so much public money that comes in that we usually do pretty good. And, the first 3 or 4 days of this tournament were great for us. Saturday was one of our best days of the year. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how we did as far as the first couple of rounds of this tournament.
Arthur DeCesare, we have a couple more minutes with Art. You can find him at ArtDice21 on Twitter, and we'll get to some actionable info for tonight, NBA, NHL on the way out. But I want to quickly ask you, baseball, World Baseball Classic, the most viewed baseball game in history last night, apparently. Half the TV sets the night before in Japan had the game on in the semifinals. Obviously, you're not getting the Japanese bets, at least unless they were in town. But how much handle did you get on that? Did you get lost with March Madness? And anything else you want to talk about in baseball real quick before we get to tonight?
Steve, that's great that you brought it up. Obviously, it was a slower night in sports last night, but World Baseball Classic was front and center for us. We had it on sound. We had it on multiple TVs. It was big, and there was a lot of, hooting and hollering in the book. We took really good action on it. It was funny. We were rooting for Japan in the game because we took a lot of USA money, but we also had Japan money as far as the outright winner. So we kind of split the baby a little bit on that. So it was kind of one of those things where, we weren't going to win or lose either way. So we kind of were able to divide it. But yeah, there was really great money on it. Early on in the process in pool play, not so much. But once we got into these elimination games, the money was really good on these WBC games.
I know I want to ask some actionable for tonight, but I got to ask you real quick, Art. We're trying to squeeze as much knowledge as we can out of your brain in a 2-minute span. But MLB futures, where are you seeing the money coming? Who do the pros like? Who do the Joes like? Certainly when season wins, for example.
Yeah, and that was the two I were going to hit on. The two most popular ones, I'm going to give you an over and I'm going to give you an under, and it's actually two National League teams. Over money has come in on the Braves. Braves were 93.5. We're now 95 on the Braves. And that was even before the Edwin Diaz stuff and all that. People were on the Braves. And then, the Mets closer goes out. So that's obviously going to take some public money that comes in. And then under Colorado Rockies, 66.5. It's been very popular. That's been some sharp money, but also some public money. Rockies are probably the worst team in that NL West. So, mid 60s, that money's been coming in 66.5 to the under.
And before we let you go, real quick, can you give us any thoughts on where the action has come tonight? NBA, NHL, who do the pros like? Who do the Joes like? What stands out to Arthur DeCesare over the Westgate Superbook?
Sure, a couple NBA totals. I know you guys touched on it with Tony, but that Nick Heat total absolutely has seen a lot of steam, 220.5, now 224.5. It's basically been public money, so that's more of the public side. Phoenix and LA, 227.5 to 230.5. We saw early money come in from sharps at 227.5 and 228. And then that NIT game that you guys touched on, UAB Vandy. We opened Vandy -2. It's now a pick 'em. So the money has come in on UAB.
The most efficient 15 minutes in sports betting you will find anywhere all week on any TV show with Arthur DeCesare right now from the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. We'll be out there August 19th for the meet and greet. Looking forward to seeing Art in person, hopefully that weekend. You can follow him on Twitter at ArtDice21, also at Superbook Sports. Arthur, what else going on at the Westgate? Sweet 16 starts tomorrow.
Yeah, Sweet 16 starts tomorrow, and obviously we got games in town. So I think, this weekend is usually a little bit slower. People obviously last weekend are here, and it's a crazy week. And this is usually more of a laid-back week. I think with the games in town and good games, I think we'll be busy. And, I always tell people, if you're in town and, you want to come down and get on some of these, Major League Baseball season win stuff or, anything. I mean, the season starts a week from tomorrow. So we're getting real close. You want to sign up for the app. Anything you want to do, come down to the Westgate, ask for Arthur DeCesare, and I'll be more than happy to help you.
He really will. He'll come out and help. And Prez says if you yell extra loud, he comes out sooner to help you. Arthur DiCesare, Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. And once again, a meet and greet coming up August 19th. It'll be a great time to go to the Westgate Superbook if you're not already in town. Teddy, great show. We'll do it again tomorrow. Prez will be back. Don't forget, college basketball, 2 o'clock Eastern. I'll be on. Teddy will be on at 4:15 Eastern on the NBA show. Also, my Fade the Public Sweet 16 video is live right now. Hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts. Teddy, take us home.
Yeah, what do they say when you score a touchdown in the NFL? Act like you've been there before. You might want to do that if you're walking to the Westgate Superbook, as opposed to screaming your head off for Arthur DiCesare, who is behind the counter. That's going to wrap it for the Wednesday edition of Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and then, you guys know what to do. Enjoy the games, and best of luck with all your wagers.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.